You've seen the headlines, and honestly, you might have even felt that anxiety firsthand. But today, we are swapping out worry for action. We're using direct guidance from federal agencies like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Department of Labor, and healthcare.gov to construct a rock-solid bridge over those turbulent financial waters. What actually happens when the paycheck stops? Layoffs, furloughs, cut hours. The panic is incredibly real. But by the end of our time today, you're going to have a clear, step-by-step framework to protect your necessities and maximize your benefits. We're making sure you're never caught entirely off guard. Get a load of this number, 6.9 million. As of July 2023, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that 6.9 million Americans hold contingent temporary jobs without long-term security. That is over 4% of the entire employed workforce. These are roles with absolutely no implicit or explicit contract for ongoing employment. So financial uncertainty is literally built into the fabric of our modern economy. Preparing for a shock isn't being pessimistic, it's just an essential life skill.
Look, if you just received that furlough notice, I want you to remember something. While your employer is deciding what happens next for their organization, you can start deciding what happens next for you. Get the details of your furlough in writing. Find out what happens to your pay, your benefits, and whether there's an anticipated return date. This is important. Then start making decisions based on what you know, not simply what you fear might happen. Also, if it's a layoff instead of a furlough, you need to get answers to questions like, hey, am I eligible for rehire? Can I get a letter of recommendation? Will I receive severance or payment for unused PTO? And questions like, when will my health insurance end? What happens to my retirement account? And who should I contact if I need employment verification or other information after I leave? Listen, before you walk away, make sure that you know what documents you'll still be able to access after your company email and employee portal are turned off. Save the personal employment information that you're legally permitted to keep and make sure that the company has your current personal email address and contact information, especially if you're going to be relocating. Also, depending on your position, you may have signed a confidentiality agreement or a non-disclosure agreement or non-solicitation provisions, or even a non-compete agreement. Before you begin freelancing, consulting, working for a competitor, or approaching former clients, pull out those documents, give them a glance over, and understand what you agreed to. Don't just assume that you remember the terms just because you signed them years ago, and don't assume that every provision is automatically enforceable either. Laws surrounding non-compete agreements can vary state by state and circumstance by circumstance. So if anything is unclear, consider having the agreement reviewed by a qualified employment attorney before you make your next move. The last thing that you need during an already stressful career transition is to accidentally create a legal problem while you're trying to create an income solution. So again, while your employer is deciding what happens next for their organization, you can be getting all the information that you need so that you can make a good decision as to what happens next for you. All right? Those two things can happen at the same time.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB, lays it out clearly. An emergency fund is simply a cash reserve set aside specifically for unplanned expenses. And why is this so absolutely crucial? Because without it, a sudden shock can force you onto high-interest credit cards or make you drain your retirement accounts. That is exactly how a short-term hurdle snowballs into a long-term debt trap. Think of this fund as your personal financial shock absorber.
The best part is that literally any amount helps. You can build that savings habit by following 4 totally actionable steps from the CFPB. First, set a specific goal to keep yourself motivated. Second, create a system for consistent contributions. Setting up automatic recurring transfers from checking to savings is hands down the easiest way to do this. You are basically paying yourself first. Third, regularly monitor your progress. And fourth, definitely celebrate those wins when you hit your milestones. Now, where should you actually stash this money? The CFPB breaks down the trade-offs. A dedicated bank or credit union account is generally the safest bet, though you might be tempted to transfer funds out for a non-emergency. A prepaid card is totally disconnected from your bank, meaning you can only spend what's loaded on it, which is great for enforcing discipline. And physical cash, sure, you get immediate access, but it carries a huge risk of being lost, stolen, or destroyed. Just pick the one that best matches your personal needs and self-control.
Now, if you're watching this after you've already been furloughed and you don't have an emergency fund, please don't let this section discourage you. You can't go backward and build yesterday's savings today. So let's work with what you have right now, okay? Take a look at the money that you have available, identify the bills and necessities that absolutely must be paid, and start investigating any benefits or income that you might qualify for right now, okay? And just kind of take it at your own pace. You're walking your own journey. So right now we're trying to determine two things. How much time do you have and how much income do you need to replace? Just those two things, okay?
I need you to burn this number into your memory. 60 days. Healthcare.gov stresses that you have exactly 60 days from the moment you lose your job-based coverage to enroll in a marketplace health plan. They call this window a special enrollment period. Miss that 60-day cutoff, and you could be stuck completely uninsured until the next annual open enrollment. That exposes you to massive financial risk if a medical emergency pops up. Now, a lot of times, your former employer will offer you COBRA, which lets you temporarily stay on your old plan. But listen, you do not have to just accept it. You should always compare the cost of that COBRA plan against marketplace options. With COBRA, you're usually footing the entire premium yourself, including that massive chunk your employer used to cover, plus an admin fee. It gets wildly expensive. A marketplace plan, however, might offer income-based savings or subsidies that make it far more affordable while you're transitioning. And that leads us to a massive warning about COBRA. Let's say you sign up, but a few months later you realize it's just too expensive, so you stop paying. Healthcare.gov is super strict about this. Voluntarily dropping your COBRA coverage early does not trigger a special enrollment period. If you pull the plug on your own, you are locked out of the marketplace until the next open enrollment. So always double-check your dates and fully grasp the rules before you end any policy early. The Department of Labor points out something huge. An unexpected job transition could mean leaving serious money on the table if you aren't fully vested in your company's retirement plan. Vesting is really just a fancy word for ownership. You always own the money you personally put in, but you might not own the employer match until you've been there for a certain number of years. Knowing your plan's vesting schedule is critical, so you know exactly what funds you're legally entitled to walk away with. When you do transition, the DOL gives you 3 clear options to protect those hard-earned assets. First, you can often leave the money in your former employer's plan, letting it grow tax-deferred. Second, you can roll the funds over into your new company's plan, which keeps things consolidated. Or third, you can roll it into an individual retirement account or IRA, which usually opens up a way wider variety of investment choices. Making a deliberate choice here, instead of just forgetting about an old 401k, keeps your bridge to retirement totally intact.
And just to be clear, the goal isn't to just grab the first opportunity that you see. I strongly encourage you to research the startup cost, the requirements, the time to start, flexibility, and realistic earning potential so that you can determine whether it actually makes sense for you and your career journey.
You definitely don't have to wait around for a full-time offer to start bringing in cash again. Looking at the data from July 2023, nearly 12 million Americans were working as independent contractors, alongside millions more in temporary and on-call roles. There is a massive, highly established infrastructure out there for temporary bridge income. Taking on freelance work, consulting, or hitting up a temp agency isn't a step backward at all. It's a highly strategic move to bridge your income gap while you hunt for the perfect long-term fit. It really all boils down to this mindset shift. A thoughtful strategy converts uncertainty into choices. You can't always control a macroeconomic shock, a sudden layoff, or a furlough, but you absolutely control your response. You control how you manage your emergency fund, how you protect your basic necessities, and how you investigate your healthcare and retirement options. That kind of strategy transforms a terrifying unknown into a series of actionable, manageable steps. Knowing your rights and having a plan gives you all the power. So what single step are you going to take today to build your bridge to tomorrow? Are you going to automate that emergency fund transfer or finally go check your vesting status? Look, the rain is going to fall eventually. The only question is, will your roof be ready when it does?